millions of years ago, this canyon here was once a sand dune. So every line that you see inside the rocks here, that was a sand dune, okay? So eventually what happens is that one thing you gotta know is that when I pile this sand up, it creates that downwards motion. But when I do it again, it does it again. So that's how you get the layers here, all right? So I'm gonna keep doing that, and then eventually that sand will just sit and compress. And then when it compresses, that water will come by, and the water will submerge a portion of sand, and this sand will soak in all that water, and then it'll go deeper underneath this dry sand. So if I were to move this dry sand, you'll see some layers, okay? So this here alone took 150 years to form. And eventually what happens is that it'll get piled on top of again. And this is how it actually gets its formation, the hourglass, okay? So eventually it sits again, and then eventually this layer will get very heavy and compress everything down to a tiny line. So now what happens is that we won't have any rain, no more rain, just wind. The wind will come by and blow all that sand on top of it, creating layers known as crossbedding, okay? And eventually what will happen is that we'll have high winds that will come by, and they'll blow all that loose sand away from this hard sand, revealing this rock to the surface, all right? And then one thing happens is that when this rock has enough erosion, it falls. And when it falls, that crack forms, and then that water will find that crack and slowly feed itself and opening up these canyons known as slot canyons, all right? So now if I were to take this and flip it around, you guys can see. So how many of you guys have heard of a place called Monument Valley? If you guys been to Monument Valley, you'll see and like question, why is that butte in the middle of nowhere? And that's just how it was. It was all buried underneath the sand dune. Eventually the sand dune got high winds exposed to it and blew all that loose sand away. And eventually what happens is that water will find a crack from the higher grounds and feed down to the lower grounds and cause it to open up. Let me show you guys that. Yep. So eventually this is all just what happens is that high water, or that water comes from the higher grounds, finds that crack and slowly opens it up into the lower grounds. So here you guys can notice that the exit here was very narrow, and then when you guys went down in the beginning, it was very wide. So all that water found this crack here and then shot out towards the opposite end. But notice thing too is that when that water comes through and it rains, it creates more layers underneath it. Eventually the sand will just get blown away and reveal all this rock to the surface. So this is just how the Navajo sandstone is all formed. It's just by rain, water, time, heat, and pressure, all right? So you guys can see all these layers inside of it and whatnot. But yeah, guys, this is just a little idea of how this canyon's all made and shaped. Let's see if I can pick this up. You guys can see here. So yeah, you guys can go home and make your own canyon now. But yeah, if you guys push on it too, you guys can see how compact this sand is. It's like walking on the beaches.